Yeah, cool.
Are you guys able to see the screen or PowerPoint?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start. Hello, thank you for being here today. My name is Hannah Lee. Today I'll be presenting my project on privacy and security risks in smart home security cameras, focused on homeowner-friendly risk assessment checklist. So this project examines common privacy and security risks in smart home cameras and uses those findings to develop this for homeowners. Here's a quick overview. I'll start with the problem, motivation, and background. Then I'll highlight related work that supports my approach, walk through the design, data, and key findings, and finish with a short demo of the checklist and time for any questions. When we talk about IoT in the home, we mean everyday internet-connected devices like smart speakers, thermostats, locks, lights, and especially smart security cameras. Smart cameras are popular because they let homeowners monitor their property remotely, receive alerts, and review recordings, but they are also among the most privacy-sensitive devices in the home because a compromise can expose activity inside the household, not just data on a network. Once a camera is connected, it becomes part of the home's attack surface through the device itself, the Wi-Fi network, the mobile app, and the cloud platform. Weak passwords, reused credentials, outdated firmware, and overly open settings can allow attackers to view video recordings or learn patterns about when people are home or away. This matters even more as smart security devices continue to grow. Recent reporting describes connected homes with around 22 smart devices facing nearly 30 cyber attempts per day. There's already a lot of technical research on smart home and IoT security, but much of it is written for experts and not for homeowners. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, their research shows a gap between perception and practice, that people often assume security devices as secure by default and feel responsible for protecting them, but their actual security actions are very consistent. So the goal for this project is to turn recent research and vulnerability findings on smart home security cameras into a short, practical checklist that non-technical users can actually follow to improve security and privacy at home. Here are 4 sources that support the main pillars of my project. First is Layered Risks. Aldamani and others explain the technical threat landscape and countermeasures for smart home IoT systems. Their work shows that risks extend across devices, network, and cloud layers, which supports treating camera security as more than just device level. Second, unequal device risks. Alifa and Zuckerman show that risks can be prioritized because smart home devices do not carry equal risks, and that network security is especially important. Third is traffic can reveal behavior. Hassan and colleagues demonstrate that even encrypted traffic can reveal device behavior, which means camera usage can leak sensitive information through traffic patterns alone. And finally, the user trust gap. Haney et al. In the NIST survey shows that users often see security devices as secure by default, but their protective actions are inconsistent. So these studies show that smart home cameras face technical, privacy, or user behavior risks, which supports the need for a research-based homeowner checklist. Instead of generating new human subject data, the design approach combines peer-reviewed research, standards and guidance documents, and publicly disclosed vulnerabilities into a structured set of homeowners-facing recommendations. The core design decision is to organize the checklist around the life cycle of owning a camera. So before buying, during setup, and after. This ties guidance to concrete decisions and actions that a typical user can understand and perform. And the final result is a checklist that is both evidence-based and actionable. This table presents how I transformed a few examples of technical security recommendations identified in the literature and common vulnerabilities and exposures, or CVE analysis, into practical actions that non-technical homeowners can understand. The goal here is to demonstrate the translation process. Instead of presenting raw terms, I interpret what each recommendation actually means in terms of risk, and then rewrite it into clear, actionable steps. The first column here shows the original technical recommendation from research, or CVE, and the second column explains the risk in plain terms. The third column shows the rewritten version for non-technical users. So for first example, the literature recommends enforcing authentication and restricting access to configuration files. In technical terms, this means controlling who can access sensitive system data. And for homeowner, that becomes making sure the camera requires a password, change the default password, and restrict unnecessary access. So this is the process used to build the final checklist. Start from the technical evidence and rewrite it around decisions homeowners make. The checklist is implemented as a simple web page, which I'll show later on. It was developed in Visual Studio Code using HTML for structure and CSS for layout and styling. GitHub was used to manage the files and make the checklist full as a browser-based page. An AI assistant helps generate the initial starter code, which I revised to reflect the research findings and organize the checklist into 3 stages to reflect before buying, during setup, and after. So each checklist item follows the consistent structure. It'll have the action, risk, the likely impact, why it matters, and supporting. So the study relies on secondary data, so no surveys or interviews were conducted. The sources include peer-reviewed research, government publications such as NIST, professional cybersecurity sources, and CVE records documenting real-world camera vulnerabilities. From those sources, I extracted information on vulnerabilities, risks, impacts, mitigation strategies, and user behavior, then organized the material by topics. Patterns could be compared across studies and CVE cases. This chart summarizes the 8 CVEs analyzed in the study by the 4 identified vulnerability categories. Each CVE was assigned one primary category for accounting purposes, even though a lot of them had secondary aspects. The primary category reflects the main weakness that best describes the CVE, while the secondary category captures additional patterns that were present but not used as the main basis for count. In the primary category, missing or broken authentication and exposed services was the largest category. This suggests that access control failures and exposed camera services are major recurring problems in this sample. I also tracked secondary patterns to show overlap across categories. For example, authentication or exposed service issues appeared as a secondary pattern in several brands, co-occurring with their primary categories of input validation or cryptographic. The main takeaway is that smart home camera vulnerabilities are usually not isolated problems. They often combine multiple weaknesses that reinforce one another. Overall, the findings show the smart camera risks cluster around access, exposure, and device security. rather than appearing as random and isolated problems. Recurring patterns included authentication weaknesses, exposed services, and insecure input handling. Most risks were relevant to during setup or after setup, when the device was already connected to the home network and in active use. At the same time, several vulnerabilities also pointed back to before buying decisions, especially around vendor security practices and design quality, patch support, and long-term maintenance. So these findings are why the checklist was organized into 3 life cycle stages: before, during, and after setup. In conclusion, the project showed that smart camera risks are recurring and should be understood across the full life cycle of ownership. Risk is shaped by both homeowner actions and vendor security practices. Based on that, the project delivers a homeowner-focused checklist that translates technical vulnerabilities into practical guidance organized by staff. The main contribution is making research-based camera security more accessible to non-technical users. This project can be strengthened in several ways. First would be expanding the data set with more camera-related CVEs and vendor advisories, incident reports from additional manufacturers, because that would test whether the same patterns hold across. Secondly, user testing with homeowners would help assess whether my checklist is clear and usable, and it would guide further refinements. Finally, hands-on testing of selected cameras in controlled environments would help verify how the identified risks appear in real devices. Here are some key references that were used, including the works that I discussed earlier. Now I'm going to move on to my demo. I'm switching my screen. Are you guys able to see that?
Yeah, we can see your screen, and you're also having 5 more minutes. Also, you can extend because we started a bit late.
So this is the main checklist page. Each stage uses expandable items, so users can quickly scan the topics and open only the risks or actions they want to learn more about. That keeps the page readable while still providing enough detail. So under before buying, for example, I selected the first item, which talks about the vendors. When expanded, it shows the action, it shows the risk, impact, why it matters, and a supporting example. If they want to learn more, if they want more explanation, they can also find the linked page here. And this page includes additional guidance, such as what to check for. Here, they can go to the vendor's website for update history, see if they have support information. And if you scroll down a little more, there's a warning sign that the user can take into consideration. And this is during setup. And if you go to the first item, this talks about the password and has the same structure. And the detail page is here. And again, the same format. So overall, the checklist tells people what to do. It explains the reasoning behind each step in plain language. It emphasizes layer protections over time, like strong, unique passwords, restricted network exposure, segmenting smart devices from other home devices, and keeping firmware and apps up to date. So that concludes my capstone presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions at this time.
So I'm thinking, so if the user, they after they set up, so they got the checklist, and then so if they want to get more, like more advanced about the camera, so they're gonna take back to you to add to a bit more.
So they can refer to this page. The way I organized it is by the stage. So wherever they are, if they're looking into buying a camera, they can focus on the before buying category. They can look at that. If they're in the middle of owning a camera already and they want to know how to improve their security, they just want to check where they're currently at as far as their security and privacy, then they can look at the during setup and see the things that they could control on their end.
Oh, I got.
Does anybody else have any other questions? I wanted to ask one question. If there is a baby and we want to only monitor that baby, so we can keep a camera just for monitoring a baby or a small kid in the house. Is that doable using this?
If it's just monitoring a baby, would this information be useful? Is that the
Yeah,
question?
like we can modify. How can we modify the setup so that we can uh, monitor the baby, or like can we keep a camera near a dog's chain neck so that whenever it is near the baby, it will be like monitoring.
So the checklist is kind of for any type of use. The reason I chose this topic is because I realized I set a security camera for my parents and I use it for my indoor camera as well. And I just kind of wondered how secure my camera was because I mean we trust the camera secure. For example, we might not be dressed fully walking around the house. We have camera set up at our parents' or grandparents' home for just to make sure that they're safe and they're not, you know, fainting or falling on the floor, and we just don't know about it. So this checklist is just to make sure no one can change your settings. So once somebody can access the settings, they can modify that. You don't have access to it anymore. So sure, if you're using the camera for baby monitoring, this could be useful. But you don't want to get credentials stolen. You don't want any other people that shouldn't have access to it have access and then get your footage stolen and just no longer have access to it.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. So I think that's it for today. So the other person, Michael, is not going to join for some reason. So I think we both have good projects. All the best.